Alright, everybody. That is enough Dragon Ball music, a very appropriate choice. We are here for a fourth week of the Pichy and Palscast. This is, of course, the most listened to Australian anime fighting game podcast in the world. I have not got any of my previous guests tonight. We will instead be talking about E3 and some games that were either revealed or more heavily shown throughout the event. And I'll be bringing in tonight one Oren Sleep Mode Quinn to talk about some of the games on. Are you there, Oren? There he is. Let's put your name up.
I am certainly here.
Oren is, of course, another Queensland player, more known for being a purveyor of random dead games, slightly different dead games to Hunter Steven. Oren is much more fond of things like the Kamen Rider fighting games, and Dragon Ball Z Butoden 3, which we will be discussing a bit later. How have you been?
Yes, more commonly known as Extreme Butoden was a 3DS game. Anyway, yes, hello. I'm here to talk about video games with Pichy. It'll be fun.
Cool, so obviously in the last week the biggest news event has been E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, that time of the year where everyone actually listens to corporate nonsense conferences, in the hope that they might hear about some cool computer games to play. Are there any non-fighting games that piqued your interest, or in any sort of way, whether you want to play them or just found something about the presentation interesting?
Well, I didn't unfortunately get to catch E3 as it was happening live, though I have heard horror stories about how Bethesda decided to announce Skyrim again twice, but
Oh, you can never have enough Skyrim.
aside from any ridicule, deserved there, the one non-fighting game that really caught my attention was Capcom's announcement of Monster Hunter World.
Ah, yes.
So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I had some reservations about the initial reveal trailer at the start because I wasn't entirely sure what sort of direction they were meant to be taking with the game.
Besides open world?
Very much a it was the open world part that really concerned me initially because Monster Hunter, very much like a structured, this is your lobby and these are your quests and
Yep.
you go to a separate map to do the quest sort of thing. Very sort of compartmentalized. So I was kind of concerned that the move to open world for Monster Hunter was a little bit unfitting, similar to my feelings on when this wasn't at E3, but it was something that happened fairly recently when they announced that the new Dynasty Warriors game was going to be open world. I have some reservations about the formats of both of those games working in an open world setting. Monster Hunter specifically had me worried that it was just going to be, Dark Souls, basically. But some initial impressions from gameplay teasers that various gaming YouTubers have put out have led me to believe that it's gonna be different. I think they've said they're very much focusing on a slightly more Western audience than what they usually go for with Monster Hunter games. But no, all the changes, they seem to be like streamlining the game processes in some fairly smart ways. Some changes I'm not, I of course have reservations about, but I'm a bit more optimistic about Monster Hunter World now than I was when I initially thought, oh god, how are they going to make Monster Hunter open world? So I'm interested to see where Capcom goes with that, because it's very much in my opinion, Capcom's best franchise at the moment.
Yeah, at this point, it's the one which has definitely had the least reductions in quality. It helps that a lot of the original development and design staff are still working on the games. To me, the impression of Monster Hunter World that it left me with is, it feels like it's moving towards more of the things that I don't like about Monster Hunter in the first place. Because to me, whenever I've played a Monster Hunter game, and that hasn't been in a while since I haven't had the devices that it's currently on, I played it when it was a PSP and Wii game. To me, it's always felt like an arcade. The core of Monster Hunter has always felt like an arcade game, which had a bunch of extra padding put in order to make it work as a console game. And unlike some games of the past, I like to use Castlevania 1 as one of my favorite examples of console filing an arcade game in ways that maintain the spirit, just in a slightly different environment for play. And Monster Hunter always felt to me like, rather than enhancing the facets of the game that I liked, which is essentially how good can you fight the bosses and what tools can you use to get different results, it focused way more on repeat this task over and over and over again for the minuscule chance that you'll get the item you need in order to work with the other 15 pieces of craftsmanship in order to grind one piece of an armor set that will have very, very small rewards in the end. There's a big pile of number crunching which doesn't serve any purpose beyond making you do something that should already be exciting to do in the first place. And the numbers game that it plays feels like if the reward essentially feels topsy-turvy, where you should be able to kill the monsters quicker because you've better learned the matchup. But in practice, what happens is you struggle through a bunch of times against the monster, get the parts from those monsters to upgrade your weapons, and then you're killing them faster, not just because you learn the matchup, but because your numbers have now been magically grown in your avatar strength. And so you're killing things quicker. So essentially it all snowballs in your favor in a way that isn't very satisfying to me. Whereas you get things like the wacky old videos of someone, like, say, parrying the devil hoe. I think that's the sort of stuff I want the game to encourage players to do more of, because it's exciting and enjoyable. I'd rather see the game be built around, here are the leaderboards of how quickly people have completed each mission, and the mission structure is something I've always liked because it can provide more variety. You've got to kill several monsters. You got to deal with this devil hoe while there's like some Daijuggy running in behind you. That sort of thing is much more entertaining to me than you're just gonna farm this Barioth 15 times and hope that you get the right drop. But
that was very much one of the sorry.
No, you keep going. There's gonna be a bit of lag.
That's very much one of the that's very much one of the things that I'm a repeat Monster Hunter get into it. The first time I tried to play Monster Hunter was in 4U on the 3DS, and that very much was not a fun experience for me because I ran into the exact problem that you were just describing. I felt that the game was placing too much focus on that, high end, that end game MMORPG style grind of fight this one thing over and over for the off chance that you'll get this one thing that you need to maybe make this one part of a larger set of stuff that you'll need to do later things. To me, it kind of felt that I kind of felt like, technically you can fight a monster good just by learning how to fight it properly. There are tons of Monster Hunter players that do what so-called naked runs just for the novelty of it. But I honestly found, at least in that point, that I wasn't learning any of the fights against any of the monsters by virtue of the fact that I was actually, wanting to go in and fight them. I was only going to be fighting them just as like a side effect of having to fight the same thing over and over just for that one armor set that I wanted. I mean, eventually
the game is essentially conning you into learning the game.
Yeah, that's how I felt, and it didn't really get until Generations for me to really pick the game back up and go, oh, actually, this is kind of fun, and not and I mean, I still have the issues with the equipment grind focus, but it introduced enough new systems and changes that while I do find it to be incredibly poorly designed in just terms of balance in some ways.
They've always been wonky.
Well, Generations is especially erroneous because it introduced the hunting styles and the hunter art. So hunter art's basically special moves you get depending on what weapon you have equipped.
Oh boy, switch axes all around. Everything's a switch axe now.
Yep. Striker switch axe. And as much as I love playing switch axe just because I do love the novelty of the giant sword that's constantly on fire or glowing with electricity or whatever element that my switch axe has attached, I'm a little bit disappointed by the fact that the axe part of the weapon is completely useless.
Oh, that's not
You
very
can
surprising.
be in sword mode 100% of the time.
Cool.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I definitely enjoy Monster Hunter more now than I did previously, but it does very much have some issues.
Some issues.
And I don't know very serious issues, and I don't know exactly what world is going to be doing. I know that one of the changes that at least I've heard that they're making is that now you are able to move around while consuming healing items, and I really don't like the sound of that.
That's a Diablo mechanic.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't really feel like that's, especially in a game where you know, enemies like hit slow, but they hit hard. It's very much like that Dark Souls. I feel like healing should be some kind of commitment.
Yeah, like everything in Monster Hunter is a committed action.
Yeah, so I don't know how healing should be doing that.
Well, you see, healing and moving makes me think that it's not so much going to grab the Western audience, so much as it is the Chinese audience. Because you see, if we're turning it into Diablo healing, then it's going to be, the meta is all about stock up those 99 potions, and then alternate like 3 shoulder buttons to simulate the mashing of your potion hotkeys. Maybe they'll even fix the potion sounds, it'll go, whoa, whenever you pick one up.
Yeah. Was that something that they did in that Monster Hunter Online, the
10-cent one,
whatever it was, the 10-cent one? Yeah.
I have no idea.
That they did. I don't know anything about that game other than like the majority of the mid-game content is locked behind a paywall.
Oh, that sounds about right for a free-to-play game using QQ. Yeah. I mean, I had one laptop which was pretty much left for dead, which is why I put QQ on that one to play some Twandor Chung at the time, and that game wound up getting murdered by pay-to-win content in the end. So, such is life in the cutthroat. Yeah, that game got busted in very unfun ways. You know what else was announced at E3, though? I'm going to put it up on the stream. I hope you're ready. Where is my web page? There we are. That's right, Bubsy is back. If you go to bubsy3d.com, you can play Bubsy Visits the James Turrell Retrospective, which is a wonderful computer game, but not at all anything to do with the Bubsy game announced at E3. This reminds me of a couple of years ago, Interplay teased that they were going to do a new Clay Fighter, but Interplay is not the people they once were, and so nothing's really eventuated from that. The new Bubsy footage does remind me of pretty much every nostalgia-based project, particularly the Kickstarter ones, where lots of development tools have been developed that make 3D much easier to make, but really, really lazy use of shaders, and often relying on a shader to just cover any gaps in your general artistic direction, result in them all having this very homogeneous look, like Mighty Number 9, Yooka-Laylee, now the Bubsy game. They all have this very weird look. Bloodstained, The Ritual of the Night, has a slightly similar look. And it was funny because I was reminded of this by when Dave Carbera was snarking about that game the other day. But look at it. This looks particularly amateurish, but I guess that's in the tradition of the original Bubsy 3D, which was itself far more amateurish looking than Bubsy 1 and 2 were. But the one thing I'll say in Bloodstain's favor over the others is that in about 2009, Koji Igarashi developed a PSP remake of Castlevania Rondo of Blood, and he used 3D for that in an attempt to appeal to the Western audience, and that game looks basically identical to Bloodstained, so I think it's just that his team still isn't particularly good at developing with 3D, and man, I would actually, like, it's fun to make fun of things like that Gargoyle sprite they've been recycling since Super Castlevania 4, but I kind of miss seeing that guy.
Yeah.
You know the one? Yeah, it's like it goes from just a generic enemy in Castlevania 4 to being the first boss in Symphony of the Night. Along with that guy with the spear that was a boss. That was like the third to last boss in Castlevania 4. Oh man.
Yeah, look, Bubsy 3D to me, is just, I mean, say what you will about, whatever potential game, looks just like, classic 3D platformer revival sort of thing. And I mean, regardless, we can talk all day about whether or not that niche is going to be just completely filled by Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, which I'm pretty sure it will because
Shrug.
I mean, it's Crash
So
Bandicoot.
we're at the
It's a
end of the
known
bubble
property,
anyway.
and people aren't having to. Yeah, but just to me, the concept of a new Bubsy game, it feels very much like the concept of that Shaq Fu, the new Shaq Fu game that's supposed to be coming.
Any
out
sort
for the
of
Switch.
irony based situation where you've gone, hey, this thing became an internet meme, so we'll try and get some investment from people based on the irony factor. And generally, if you're making a game for ironic reasons, it's not going to wind up a very good game.
Generally not, no.
Which does allow me to segue to one of the other wacky announcements. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. That got leaked and then shown at the Ubisoft conference and went, oh boy, it's Ubisoft making a crossover with Mario using one of their worst IPs ever conceived, the horrible, extremely out-of-date memes and lazy pop culture gag-abusing Rabbids. And then the lead designer came out and said, hi, I used this concept to make XCOM. Did you see any of this game's footage?
I only saw a snippet of it because...
So you didn't quite know that it's
Jim
XCOM?
Sterling talked about it briefly in his...
Like, it cannot be mentioned enough.
I heard strategy game.
It's not like kind of XCOM. No, it's seriously, it's XCOM with a Mario skin. So there's tactical maneuvers like jumping on your opponent's heads and moving through warp pipes for additional mobility. And I went, holy crap, that is a beautiful thing, and I am so glad that this thing exists now. I'm sure it'll become quite polished.
Blindsided everybody. Yeah, it kind of just blindsided everybody, not just in concept and oh my god, why does this exist? But then they showed the gameplay, and at least from what I've still got to check out the footage of the gameplay myself. But at least from what I've seen from reactions from just people and yourself even now, it's just people are going, okay, this is good actually.
It's just cool. I mean, like the modern XCOMs are quite fun games. I might rant about them some other time, whether it's in a little cool game designs or questionable game designs video. There's a lot of stuff I don't like about the modern XCOMs in comparison to the original, but they are certainly polished games, and if you've never played anything like that before, there's a pretty good chance it'll blow your mind. Speaking of blowing minds, I'm on fire with these segues. Let's talk about that fighting game that got announced at E3. That's right.
Okay.
You know what it's time to talk about, don't you? Blade Stranger. Yeah! Check out that screen cap on the stream chat.
No, I forgot that. I was thinking, there's a third fighting game that got announced, isn't there? What was it? I saw it. Oh no,
second. Marvel Infinite was announced last year, so it was really this game and the one we'll talk about later. So, I died when this footage came out. So
this is the strangest crossover that nobody asked for.
So this is an independently developed fighting game. It features Kawase from the Umehara Kawase series. This is appropriate because I put over that game series at the end of the last episode when it was on sale on the Humble Store. They are very cool platformers where you move around with a fishing rod. And Kawase's in the game, and you can see a bit there of the giant blowfish super, which is, I guess it's actually just the catfish from Toho 12.3, and he's finally found some work outside of Zun's office. He went, yeah, I'm moving up in the world. I'm going from Reitai Sai all the way up to Comiket. The other cameo character...
So...
Fire away.
Isn't it meant to be like the character from Cave Story?
Yeah.
I heard Cave Story was in...
So, Curly Brace, who is the cute robot girl that you meet in Cave Story, did you ever play that game?
Only briefly.
It's a good game.
I do remember enjoying my time with it.
It's a real labor of love. It was very much an indie darling of the mid-2000s. And it's a good game.
Yeah.
Nicalis are a bit of a wonky publisher, which I'll get to in a bit. Anyway, yeah, so they put in Curly. The game's art assets are very not finished. The cast aren't finished being included. Maybe we'll see some other wacky cameo. Maybe like Kero Blaster will appear. Maybe... Oh, what's some other random Japanese indie game that has... Like Nicalis would have their eyes on. Oh, need to rack my brain here. Like, maybe the ship from Choren Shah. Did you know that Choren Shah 68K, a game that was originally made for the X68000 PC, got an update about 3 weeks ago? The last patch was about 13 years ago. But it got a patch so it works on Windows 10.
That's like FK Digital updating Super Cosplay War Ultra, but even better.
Yeah, see, like, that one I could understand. Well, I mean, this one was obviously so people can still play and enjoy the game. That last Super Cosplay War update felt like... I mean, that game's always felt like just a dumping ground of ideas for Chaos Code. And so it was, hey, we've got some other wacky ideas and some jokes we were tossing about in the office about Final Fantasy or something, so we made another character. But anyway, the best part of the Blade Stranger reveal was that it was done via the official Twitch stream, where a shonky guy from Nicalis popped up and started talking about the game. He was very enthusiastic at extol and liked to extol features that weren't really features. I'll link in the chat the video for a giggle. My favorite part of the video... There are two parts of the video I really like. The first is there's a bit where he pitches the bog standard technique for making sprite animations in the 90s as being the special, intricate technique that's a patented technology. It's just, dude, everyone did 3D models, you tween out some basic animations, then you trace over and do some flourishes at the end. Pretty much the only people who did... I mean, I love to pull out and subject people to Talkie Dentro Angel Eyes, and you can see the process in motion in that game, because some of the characters still aren't past the we just finished tweening the placeholder model stage. But even all the way up to, like, King of Fighters 13 used that exact same technique. It is a very tried and tested formula for getting... And the reason that you do it is so you don't have to work out the locations of everything from scratch. You go, okay, I just move to the next frame of the tweening, and then I've got the shape of the character worked out, and I don't accidentally get really off model in between frames. Probably the most notable exceptions of this in the 90s is the vampire games, because Capcom had a ton at the time of classically trained animators. And you look at those games, you look at the vampire sprites, and they're pretty much the pinnacle, like those on the Third Strike, but the vampire ones in particular go really full bore with 12 Old Man stuff. There's so much squash and stretch, so much freeform. Like, you look at the Pyron animations, holy crap, the freestyling that goes on in those. They are gorgeous things. So he pitched the standard techniques as being a special feature, and then I think it was about 8 or 10 minutes into this video, where he's been blathering on, trying to make all these boring, crappy poverty features sound like the most exciting thing ever. And then he finally mentions, and you know, these guys have some real pedigree, because they made the best game ever. Blade Arcus from Shining.
I knew it! I knew it! When I saw this game the first time, my first thought was, oh god, this is a Blade Arcus, isn't it?
Well, you can tell they recycle a bunch. The font is fairly similar in the first attack screenshot I got here, and the particle effects are the same.
Yes.
So, I'm glad that
tell from how off the characters.
Yeah, everything is very Uncanny Valley in the way it moves. But I'm glad that the Blade Arcus guys got enough money from doing their Sega job that they could actually make their own passion project. And whether this game turns out very good or not, I'm glad to see people making games that they clearly want to make.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. We can at least be happy for them for that, although I will still continue to ridicule Blade Arcus because even I can't enjoy that game.
See, the problem is you aren't playing the Fox and doing that corner infinite. I think that's still in the game. I couldn't
figure out how to do it. Instead, I just played Rage.
2B.
He's just gonna
push that 2B.
Yeah, he's the Gordo. He's the Gordo of that game.
Oh, he's not even the Gordo. He's the 1.0 Ryofu in Koihime. And says, I've got this button that checks, and I'm just gonna keep checking you. Eventually, you'll get bored and you'll try to do something, and you'll get hit, and I'll go into super, into other super, And there goes most of your life. Cool game.
Yeah. That. Yeah, I mean, maybe they will have learned some lessons from Blade Arcus
Hopefully.
when it comes to Blade Stranger. So we'll see. But
I mean, it's got
at the very
Miguel
least,
Kawase,
like I
so
said, we can be happy
it's cool.
that they're making something.
Hey, look.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, we can at least be happy that they're making something that they actually want to make. They've done their work for Sega. Now they can do something that they want to do, and that at least is good.
So, that brings us to the other fighting game that was announced at E3. This one, like the Rabbids, was also leaked shortly beforehand, but the reveal and all the concrete information came out at the event, and we are, of course, talking about Dragon Ball Fighter Z.
Yep.
So, if you haven't encountered this, if you look up Dragon Ball Fighter Z on YouTube, you'll probably find 5 million re-uploads of other people's footage. The game is a 3 vs 3 Dragon Ball series fighting game, funded by Bamco, obviously, since they own the license, and developed by Arc System Works, designed by, what's his face, Master Designer number 2, whatever his name is, the Persona 4 Arena Ultimax game designer. And
is that the same person? Who's the
It's the guy who did 2.0.
Publicity. Is she the? Oh, okay.
The executive producer is what's her face, one of the Arc System Works producers. The one that's a girl and is not the girl that made Battle Fantasia because she got treated horribly by the company. But that's the story for another time.
Yeah, she did.
So Dragon Ball Fighter Z, I'll dig up a screen cap because I need a pretty picture there. And that's the one that I didn't prepare earlier. Whatever, Google's image searches are failing me. So, this game, I mean, the Dragon Ball fighting games have for a long time looked very good, but the impact and the snap through everything in this game looks spectacular. It looks like the show. There's lots of little details that make it feel like the show. I really feel that they've really got the tableau of what things have hit stop and what things don't have hit stop really, really on point. Because the choreography of a lot of Dragon Ball fights involves these very, very rapid flurries, and then you'll get this one pause, and then it will let the image sink in as a little tableau, and then they'll go back to the high-speed action. Like, you get the sequences where they're teleporting behind each other constantly, a section where they're just punching each other rapidly, things like that, and then they'll cross-counter each other, and it'll pause there, or one of them will be kicking, and the other guy will be blocking the kick, and lots of little pauses like that, and there's a lot in the game that I feel is really, really capturing that element of Dragon Ball fights very, very well. Like, the light attacks have very little hit stop from what I've seen so far, whereas any move that has and a lot of the mediums as well didn't seem like they had a lot of hit stop, nor did the projectile button projectiles, but moves which launched, moves which wall splat, moves which cancelled into teleports and the like, they all had a ton of hit stop on them, so boom, this is the bit where something big is happening. And I think that'll lead to a very exciting game for people. And the other thing I should mention about low levels of hit stop on light moves is that it's something a lot of the earlier versions of Melty Blood had. Actress Again Current Code is when they really started to switch this up. And it's a big part of the reason why Melty Blood, more than most other anime games, is known for people mashing Crouch A lot. It's because in a lot of the games, that was literally the only way you could hit confirm anything was to mash the crap out of the A button, and on the 4th or 5th hit was when you finally had enough time for your brain to say, hey, I'm recognizing that I'm hitting the opponent. And I think there will be a bit of that in Dragon Ball Fighter, which as we talk about the throw system, will be very useful. It's the sort of thing where people want to hit buttons in a Dragon Ball game, and so the game is encouraging people to do that, while at the same time, it being the correct play for people who are learning how to hit confirm. And also, it's how you tech throws.
Yes! Because it's not a traditional throw, is it? They're calling it like a Dragon Rush.
Well, it's called a Dragon Rush, and people gave very, very wacky descriptions of what it is, except they then confirmed that the way it's behaving is essentially like a throw. Basically, what it is just, it's a throw, but you have a short hop dash before it's active, which then telegraphs it a bunch. And there's a little flash like a dust and guilty gear. So rather than a watch out, it's an overhead indicator, it's a watch out, you're going to get thrown indicator. And what happens when they run in and they start doing the punchy thing? If you've pushed an attack button at that time, then you'll do the punchy thing back, and then you'll both get pushed away. We don't know if there's varying frame advantage based on the timing, but we do know that that's what it does. If you do get hit, they go, oh yeah, and then knock them up like a dust. So that's why people are comparing it a lot to a dust. But in practice, it is a throw. So what it means is, it's much more, you're going to use it in your mix-ups more like dusts are used. So use it off of staggers, where you've established what your rhythm of your pressure is. Then you have that break on the rhythm. Or since this is an assist game, what you do is you have the screen obscured by something. The Vegeta assist was a very good example of this. Where he goes, ah! Covers the screen with an explosion, and so you use that big explosion that's happening on the screen. I think Boo's poison gas will be good for this as well. Use something that's obscuring the screen to cover up the flash, and if you time it right, then you'll throw them right at the end of the block stun from the assist. That sort of stuff, and they can probably get out of it in pre-jump frames, but if it's something they're not watching out for and you've obscured and staggered things right, that's the way you're going to catch people with throws in this game, which is a somewhat intuitive way of doing things, and is what I feel is a good example of how to make something that's something a new player can grasp without particularly reducing the skill ceiling. Is that how throws worked in Extreme Butoden? Because that's the main reason I've got you here for, to compare the mechanics between the last Dark System Works 3v3 Dragon Ball game and this one.
So just a side note to start off with. So Extreme Butoden is very much, it's not strictly a 3v3 game. So there are characters are divided between playable characters and characters that are relegated to purely being assists.
Ah, right.
And so there was a bit more of a freeform ratio type of thing. So each character was worth different amounts of points to the team cost, and you could build teams based around that.
Oh, Gundam.
Et cetera, et cetera. So throws. Yeah, so throws in Extreme Butoden are an interesting topic because they're not a universal tool. So the whole idea with Extreme Butoden's control scheme, which is something that I think is really good, they really made a concerted effort to design for the platform, was
it's a 3DS game, by the way.
Yeah, sorry, it is a 3DS game. I should have specified that, but yeah, so you have like a light attack button, a heavy attack button, a special attack button, and a button that's dedicated to like a KOF style roll that you can use to dodge stuff. You time it as like a just defend sort of thing, and you teleport behind them, etc. So throws were not a universal tool in Extreme Butoden. Instead, throws were, depending on the context, depending on the character, they were a character's special move instead. So each character only had like 2 special moves on their A button, which was the it was the ground special and the air special. So there were, for example, every playable version of Goku, his special attack, his air special was just an air throw where he just tossed the opponent behind him, or Android 18's special attack was an anti-air grab. Yep. So, throws.
So throws are much rarer.
Absolutely nothing like they were.
Nothing like that.
Yes. So
what's the
throws, for all intents and purposes, actually exist in Extreme Butoden, in the sense that they're something that every character has the option of using, rather than just what is in essence a fairly limited tool in Extreme Butoden. There were, of course, other outliers. So each character essentially had 2 extra special moves that cost meter. One cost a quarter of a bar, and one cost a full stock of a bar. And some characters have like command grabs tied to their specials, that sort of thing. Android 18's 25% special was or 50% special, whatever it was a command grab. Bardock had a really interesting one. He had this big wind up into a strike that caused an immediate guard crush, and then the follow up to that was like a chokehold that was a grab. So
Okay.
of course, all kinds of strange shenanigans you could set up with that, but yeah. Anyway, so aside from just little intricacies of this really ridiculous game, yeah, so not much similarity between Extreme Butoden and DBF.
At least not with the throw game. So how was the assist recharge time? Because the Dragon Ball FighterZ recharges, from what we've seen, when you do a raw tag, it's a million years before you get to use that assist again. Same with doing DHCs. Yeah. DHCs at this point, delayed hyper combos for those who haven't played Marvel. It's when, while you're inputting a super, you can then do an input, and the next character in your team will tag in and do a super of their own. Generally, it's best when it's any sort of projectile super, as they're usually the safest, and it's a much safer way of switching characters around when one's low on health than when you're just trying to do a raw tag in Marvel vs. Capcom style games. But anyway, the recharge time, if you just call an assist, is somewhat slower than it is in any Marvel vs. Capcom game. They feel a bit faster than the Nitro Plus Blasters recharge times after Examu patched those to recharge somewhat faster. Still feels a little bit faster than those, but you don't have the Roman cancel function that assist calls do in Dengeki Fighting Climax or Nitro Plus Blasters. How was the recharge times in Butoden? Whoa, it's Steven and Falco. Hello, welcome to the chat, people. Fire away,
gentlemen. So Extreme Butoden, like I said, it was structured, ratio style. This character cost this amount of points. Do blah 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 with them. So to that end, recharge times for assists in that game depended on what assist you picked.
Right, like Nitro Plus.
So it was determined by a number of factors, like just the move in general, how many points that they cost. I remember early in the games, Extreme Butoden got a total of 1 patch in every non-Japan region, and that was the one that added a training mode and online play, which was amazing. Japan got significantly more updates than that, but I remember in the early days, and I think still even now, technically, to the most current version that areas outside of Japan has, the Super Vegito assist was known for being very quickly recharging. Given the utility of the assist, it was just this...
right, so that was the Doom Rocks of this game.
Like a sword down, yeah. So it was... Assist time varied depending on who it was.
Cool. We have a request from Nurk in the chat to talk about Frieza. I will use that to jump. I'm going to be jumping all around. I have this big list of all the mechanics and talking points for this game at this point. And I will use Frieza to mention a couple of things. The first is I'm really glad that they are tying powered-up forms to various supers. Frieza has an install to be Gold Frieza from Dragon Ball Super. Goku goes Super Saiyan 3 for his level 3 super, which is just him doing an instant Kamehameha. I'm very glad that this is the way they're doing things, because it's so easy for a Dragon Ball game to get bogged down in having every single form be a separate playable character and having very messed up balance that way, or just making a very, very weird meter management system, whereas this is much more like... It feels a bit more like what the show sometimes feels like should be, where the moments when someone's in a super powerful form is a real, oh crap, it's on, I've got to make something happen or else I'm gonna die moment. And the rest of the time is the jockeying and the battle in order to get to those states. The other thing I'll mention that Frieza brings up is he's a fairly zoning heavy character, and when he's in Gold Frieza form, the telekinetic rocks are really freaking fast. He also has the hilarity of throwing Destructo Disc, which comes back and hits himself. He can crouch under it, but part of the reason that you might want to hit yourself is that he has a level 3 reversal super that hits really hard and is really fast and invul, but he can only do it when he's knocked down. So you can essentially create your own scramble situation where you create a false opening for the opponent to try and hit you and do a reversal there. The other thing to talk about that I've noticed with a lot of the footage Because in this game, there's 4 buttons: light, medium, heavy, and special, much like Marvel, except the special button is essentially your basic key blast button.
Yes.
There's projectiles which are tied to special moves, and I'll talk a bit more about the difference between those later. But the important thing to mention at this point, in all the footage I've seen so far of Golden Freezer, is that he does a lot of projectiles, but projectiles in this game of any kind, whether it's the special button ones, special input ones, or powered up ones via installs, the chip damage on everything in this game is incredibly low. Really freaking low.
Yes.
I think the highest chip damage I've ever seen was on Freezer throwing the Destructo Disc and it getting blocked. I am really happy to see that.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball is a game where people no-sell projectiles all the goddamn time. We're blocking and deflecting them. I'll talk about the deflecting in a while later as well, but that is the sort of situation where it's fitting for the source material that people no-sell projectiles. And this is the sort of mechanic that, again, for new people coming in, chip damage and chip kills are one of the most frustrating things about learning a game. In a versus game where there's so much crap going on the screen at any time, and there's so much potential for large amounts of chip damage, negating that game can allow people to really feel like they've got a chance, and that they're not just going to get whittled down while trying to make that chance happen. That if they lose when trying to make a comeback happen, it's because they actually got hit. So, that is cool. How was chip damage in Super Butoden for comparison's sake while we're here?
Oh, I don't even remember. Is there even chip damage in Extreme Butoden? I honestly don't know. Because
it's irrelevant. You hit people with Baby Goku unblockables anyway.
Yeah. there is no chip damage. You just hit people with Baby Goku. That is the best thing about that game, honestly. But before we talk about that, I just want to say that one of the things that really impresses me about just from the little bits and pieces of info I've seen about DBF and just what I have seen in terms of footage is that I really like the fact that the developers are very much selling it as not just a fighting game, but also as a Dragon Ball game, and they're very much working with like you said, all those little touches, and even down to the control scheme. They're really trying to make it something that new players can very easily jump into, and I really like that because Dragon Ball fighting games historically have been more suited to casual players than competitive players. The only
Whoa, are you suggesting that Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2, with its Mario Party roll across the roller dice move along the game board story mode, where you roll a 5 and fight a Saberman for the 15th time, wasn't designed for a hardcore tournament audience?
Don't listen to any of the people that are going to tell you that Budokai 3 or Dragon Ball Z Infinite World are good competitive games.
They're not really.
They're interesting, but they're not. No. The only time that a Dragon Ball fighting game has ever come close to that,
legitimacy is Hyperdimension on the Super Nintendo, with its one-frame guard cancel grab super, and its inescapable round start by Cell where he still loses anyway.
The best part about the one frame inescapable reversal grab is that all the best characters in the game can kill you off one hit anyway, so it's completely irrelevant.
But what if they dropped?
No, I'm actually gonna. Oh, if they dropped, then you're in
What if
trouble.
Freezer is setting up unblockable Death Ball because the Death Ball is off the screen? And if you cannot see it, how can you block it?
Just do a forward hop. You cannot dodge what you cannot see. I was actually going to take this opportunity to show Super Dragon Ball Z for the PS2. That recently got some play at I forget where it is, but it was the big one play spot arcade in Japan.
They hold like Hokuto no Ken
I haven't seen
tournaments.
anybody play that game since like 2008 or whenever it was the last footage came out, so that was fun to see. Kabe's Chi-Chi is still destroying people, but look,
I guess if we're bringing up an Arika
anyway,
game,
I really, yeah, yeah. I really appreciate the fact that they're trying to make it both a casual friendly Dragon Ball game as well as like an actual like
legit game
fighting game. So it could potentially be a gateway for casual players to maybe learn some more in-depth things about the fighting game genre. So all you viewers in the chat, be nice to your casual players.
All right, so the other thing I'll mention, since you brought up a game developed by Arika, is on iPlayWinner.com, Rom Scout has been submitting a series of pieces on the history of Arika. And so if you've ever wondered what the actual history of the Street Fighter EX series is, and Fighting Layer when he will eventually talk about that, they are a fun little read. You get some footage from good old SK, bodying people with his Street Fighter EX1 Zangief. He did the EX2 piece today, I think. Anyway, they're good little pieces, and hopefully EX Fighting Layer will actually become a thing and get funding, so Artika can make another cool fighting game. What else is on the list?
By the way, it was Funk Doc, not
my bad. The other very old man guy. Yes, he was Funk Doc, not Rom Scout. I apologize. So, next part of Dragon Ball that we need to talk about, looking at my list here, is the Command Dash system. And I'll talk about the special button while I'm here. So the special button is one-button projectiles. It's essentially your generic key blast button that pretty much every Dragon Ball Z fighter game has in some form. So if you jump, you'll do an air-to-ground projectile. If you're on the ground, you'll do a ground-to-ground projectile. If you crouch and push it, you'll do a ground-to-air projectile. If you hit back and special, then if you time it correctly, and I think the timing's fairly lenient, then you can deflect the projectiles, and they'll just go bouncing off harmlessly into the background and make the background explode. This is fine still, because it means that you're essentially using this button to check people as they're trying to approach. If they're reflecting things, then hey, you've made them sit still for a while, so you might be able to do things like call an assist, because you cannot deflect special move projectiles. So, for example, Cell has the Kamehameha as a special move. You cannot deflect that. So if you're calling assists, then they can't be deflected. So you've made them sit still for a bit. Use the assist to make them sit still for a bit longer. Then you've got an opportunity to get in.
Yep. From what I've seen, the deflect can also be used against just normal physical attacks as well, sort of similar to a push block.
Yeah, it can be used as a push block.
Like the Advancing Guard in Marvel vs. Capcom. Yeah. So there's that little extra bit of utility as well.
And the other thing to mention is there is a there is essentially, I can't remember the name that they gave it. Might be like Dragon Chase or something silly. Something with dragon in the name because it's Dragon Ball. Basically, it's a gimped version of homing from Arcana Heart combined with the command dashes from Nitro Plus Blasters. So I can't remember the input. It's probably like forward special or something wacky like that. Or a button plus special. Yep. But anyway, what happens is you fly towards the opponent at a reasonable speed. You can choose the direction you do it. I don't think you can wiggle around like you can in Arcana Heart when you're homing. It is actually a physical attack. So if it connects, then you get to start a combo. It's unsafe on block, from what people said. So it's not so much something that you throw out willy-nilly when you want to get in, but it is special move projectile involved. So if people, special button projectiles. So if people are just tossing those key blasts to try and make you sit still, if you can react, the game rewards you for reacting to those key blasts being tossed by, you can then get in with a homing move and hit people. When you raw tag, same deal. You tag out, they come in doing this move. So you use it to catch the basic zoning game, but if people are doing more dedicated zoning with special moves, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. Is there anything like that in Butoden?
Functionally the same mechanic as they had in Extreme Butoden. So I forget what the actual button input for it was, but yeah, basically the same mechanic. I don't know about in DBF, but I know in Extreme Butoden that cost about as much meter as your middle of the road special move.
Oh no, it's completely free in this game.
Whatever it was.
I think it's
so,
free.
In Extreme Butoden, it cost. Yeah, in Extreme Butoden, it cost meter, but it was functionally the same thing. There were a couple of extra, uses for it just because the combo game in Extreme Butoden was a bit different. But basically the way that that homing dash worked was it was pretty much the same thing. So just basic projectile invulnerable, unsafe on block.
Yep.
The main way you used it in Extreme Butoden was to extend combos, because it often, even on an air hit, it granted you enough hit stun to continue hitting them to do extra stuff. Often every character had like a special kind of launching attack string that they could cancel into the dash to continue a combo.
Yep.
Or whatever. But aside from the game-specific utility, basically the same mechanic.
Yep. Cool, so the next mechanic we have listed here is there's an input you can do which makes you teleport behind the opponent and wall splat them. This can be performed anywhere, anytime, for 1 bar, so it's essentially the Roman cancel system of this game. You do stuff, then you Roman cancel it into wall splat teleport kicks, so this is great. This is something you can use in mix-ups when you're calling an assist. It's something that you can use as a whiff punish. It's something you can use as a combo extension, so I'm glad that it's not just the exact same way of extending pressure as other Arc System Works games, because that's what assist calls are for.
Yeah.
So that is a cool thing. And the last mechanic I have listed here is the... Do you know how the chaining works in this game?
No.
So, as I mentioned before, there are 3 main buttons, light, medium, and heavy. And they will chain into each other, so you can just go light, medium, heavy. But more importantly, there are essentially up to 3 button strings on each button. So you can go AAA, BBB, or CCC. But the third hit is always going to have some unique property. That's going to be a launch or a wall splat or something. Or just do some sort of move that knocks down. So what you want to do quite often, the generic filler that we'll be seeing a lot of on the first day, is essentially AA, BB, CC, 2C to launch, then jump, AA, BB, CCC, special move, super. Now, if this sounds at all familiar, I'm going to go through, because I've mentioned many times in the past that what I like about Guilty Gear as a game is that it was essentially this melting pot and a bridging point between old games and new games, where it had things from old games like early forms of guard cancels, one-frame throws, weird janky stuff and hitboxes that make no sense, and for newer games it had things like air teching, a heavier focus on combos, increased hit stops, things like that. This game feels like a melting point of new games meeting new games. It's pinching ideas from all modern fighting games. So we've got the Exode style dust flashes and the like. We have assist calls from Marvel vs. Capcom, which is of course a lot of those systems are very... Like Marvel 2 systems are pretty much all post-Guilty Gear. We have DHCs like Marvel vs. Capcom. We have guard cancel tags, and from memory, the first game to have a guard cancel tag was it probably Ogon Musokyoku, and that's very post-Guilty Gear. We have some form of Roman cancel system. We have snapbacks in the game. I didn't mention that if you KO someone, you actually both start... Next character comes in, but you go back into the middle and have a pause, so there's no incoming mix-ups. But if there are certain moves that have a snapback property, and you get an incoming mix-up like Marvel vs. Capcom off those, so there's going to be very certain situations where you're giving up damage in order to get greater mix-up potential. But, so we've pitched from that, we have some Melty Blood style hit stops going on. We have projectile invul dashes like Nitro plus blasters, which are combined with Arcana Heart homing. And most importantly, the basic normal chaining system is identical to Phantom Breaker.
Oh no! I forgot about that game.
Oh, if you've forgotten about Phantom Breaker...
How did you let me forget about that game,
oh,
Steven?
There's going to be some...
How did you let me forget about that game, Steven?
Come OHN, there's going to be some hell to pay that you forgot the glory that is Phantom Breaker. Actually, speaking of OHN, I should mention this here. I've talked about OHN a few times, and I'm actually going to OHN. Thanks to some people from Sydney and members of the community, my flights have been covered. So I am going there to commentate a big pile of fighting games. And based on the schedule, I might wind up trying to hustle people into playing some random dead game. I don't know, Magical Beat tournament, anyone?
Sounds good. I've definitely I'm gonna start planning my trip to OHN fairly soon.
Oh, you are coming?
Wondering
Cool.
whether or not I should put my hand up for commentary as well. It's absolutely something that I'm gonna start planning soon. Wondering whether or not I should put up my hand for commentary, if there even is any room for that. Otherwise, I'm just happy to, play video games with people. It'll be the first time I visited the Sydney fighting game community.
Well, there's some pretty cool people there.
Maybe, I don't know.
I hear that Hugo is a pretty cool guy. This is not all my bias for knowing him for years.
I certainly hear that too. Yes, I also may eventually get Mike and Maidman yelling at me for not getting Queensland playing Virtua Fighter yet, but
it's okay.
At the very least, I'll get to play some Virtua Fighter down there.
There's been Bayonetta on the PC. There's been Vanquish on the PC. If we work hard and pray really, really hard, you know what Sega might put on the PC? That's right. They might put
Virtua
VF
Fighter 2.
Kids.
Oh yes, even better.
Or Sonic the Fighters.
So... Oh, that's a bizarre game that we've got to talk about some other time.
We're not talking about Sonic the Fighters. There's a piece written many, many years ago by Sasariga on that game, and I think it covers all that needs to be said about it. Honestly. I'm not a 3D guy, and I'm not the one who should be discussing the intricacies of Sonic the Fighters. I mean, one day I might talk about some Virtual On. Particularly as we move closer to Gundam season.
Yeah, that's very good. That's very good timing. Very good timing.
So
maybe a Gundam season this time will be the time I actually learn to play a Gundam game.
Man, I think I have some notes in here which mention a thing about a Gundam TV show that we might get around to talking about. So there was one other game which had a large amount of footage at E3, and it is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Now, this game is a bit of a can of worms. At the time of the demos, a lot of disparaging comments were coming out about the artistic direction. There was a lot of interesting dissection of the community that I would like to talk a bit about. Because there were accusations of various other people being shilling, lots of arguments about the role of consumers in the fighting game community, lots of weird little things intersecting with each other, which I'd like to talk a bit about. Basically, I'm going to be all constructivist on our asses tonight. Let's see, what is the best way to start this conversation? So, basically, I feel that a lot of the weird discourse that was occurring is the product of... We've reached a point where a lot of people who play fighting games and talk about fighting games online have constructed an identity built around this banner of the fighting game community. But they've forgotten that there are actually still a fair amount of tribal lines separating facets of this umbrella fighting game community. And every now and then, things will come up and start to highlight that there are these little divides that still go on. Part of why that these divides have been obscured is because even up to about 5 years ago, most fighting game communities were still somewhat isolated. Obviously, in the 90s and early 2000s, things were still built around local fighting game events. Through the advent of streaming, through the advent of Twitter, and to a certain extent in the last couple of years, things like Discord, the ways Discord groups, conversations moved from local events and forum discussions for individual games into this broader realm of conversation where things go on. And it's allowed people to adopt this idea of the fighting game community. But since fighting games are still individual products sold for capital, then a lot of the identity still comes from what you're actually consuming. And so one of the points that these two things intersect with each other strangely is one of the rhetorics that was coming out was that every fighting game needs to be supported. That you should support every game, and this feels to me like something that's come from the people who played the smaller games in the past, the Melty Blood players, or the Arcana Heart players, somewhat the Guilty Gear players and the like, and it's somewhat a banter that's been a slogan that's been adopted in the broader sense, because it's just phrases that have come out from a small subset of a community and entered the general discourse. At the same time, there are people who are really, really fervently hating on the visuals and looking at because they perceived it as an opportunity to rag on what they feel are Capcom fans. And at the same time, people who have ascribed a lot of their identity into purchasing and playing and talking about Capcom games felt, when you construct a lot of your identity based around the things that you're buying and playing, then any sort of criticism or feedback towards those games that you play can wind up getting perceived by your brain as a personal insult, because your identity's in the game, and so insults to the game are insults to you. And that, I feel, is what contributes a lot to the very virulent defenses of the game that were going on at the same time. I'm being very ambiguous and roundabout here, and not quite as eloquent as I would like, but there's essentially two main points that I want to say from all this, and they are as follows. First, it's okay to not like things. You do not, as someone who likes to play fighting games or goes to tournaments or watches streams or anything, it is okay to not like things. There are games, I'll play a lot of fighting games, and there are games that I do not like. I'm trying to get an Injustice player who plays anime games as well to come onto the show, and I might be doing that next show. Because I do not like NetherRealm Studios games at all. And I want someone on here to explain to me what it is they find so exciting and interesting about them. But it's okay. It is okay to dislike things, and if someone doesn't like the same things that you do, it's okay. They're probably not doing a direct attack on you, and if you're feeling that it's an attack on you, then you might need to start thinking about the way that you're consuming products and what you're staking so much of your own identity around. The other thing is, it's okay to want things to be better. Because for all that we can ascribe higher perception, and you'll see, we've seen over the last few years, like the Street Fighter V announcement trailer is an excellent example of how it was entirely built around the community, the sense of community, and ascribing your identity through the Street Fighter community. And so, but it's still a product. It's still something to be consumed and purchased. And it's okay to want it to be better. If you're getting mad that someone's making suggestions, don't be. They just want things to be better so they can enjoy them more. And don't feel guilty about sending feedback. If there's stuff that someone that's coming from a game that you don't like, give feedback on it. There's stuff about Guilty Gear Xrd that I don't like, and I would like the game to be better, and it's okay to vent those things now and then. So it's okay to not like things, and it's okay to want things to be better. That said, I would like to give some criticism, hopefully some constructive criticism about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and its art, and also some interesting little lessons that I've gained over time as far as first impressions of stuff. So let's pull up this picture of Chun-Li and Dante from Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite in comparison to
that picture
for the Street Fighter V version of Chun-Li and the Devil May Cry 3 version of Dante from well over a decade ago. And of course, Chun-Li has a very strange Cupid doll-ish appearance, and Dante looks like he's got scurvy. Now, obviously, this looks pretty bad. You look at this, and it looks pretty bad. Honestly, the thing that annoys me more about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is the palette choices in general. The game feels like it's got that modern Hollywood look, where everything at the moment is all about muted colors. Street Fighter, like, computer games have had a couple of periods where they've gone through very muted and downplayed colors and are moving out of one of those phases again. Hollywood's been entering one for the last few years. Things like the Power Rangers movie are a good example of a film which in theory should be bright and colourful. But, yeah, Troy, I very much doubt that mysterious leaker on Reddit was being very truthful. But I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk about that can of worms. I will leave that sitting there, so we'll have some funky rumor mongering in the stream chat. What I want to talk about, more importantly,
I wanted to address that,
is more than the palette or anything like that. Is so you look at these pictures and you go, man, those are pretty freaking ugly. Those are not very cool. I'm going to pull up a different screen cap now. Poring. It is a screen cap of Killer Instinct 3 coming soon to the Steam store. And if you look at this screenshot, you'll go, what the hell is happening in this picture? This game looks terrible. There is a giant fountain of sparks on the screen. I can barely see the HUD. I do not know what is going on. It's a pretty bad picture. I'm going to quickly pull up a video now. Where is the video? I think it's this one. There we are. Let's switch to the window capture. Blah. There we are. Cool. Let's take off that stream chat for a bit. So, my point that I'm going across here is, when you look at random screenshots of games in isolation, you're looking at pretty much everything around them. You're looking at the HUD, you're looking at the characters, and all these things obviously matter. But, to the general impression of a game. But, when you're actually playing a game, there is a lot of this stuff which your brain is consciously and subconsciously ignoring because it's not actually pertinent to playing the game. I disparaged Killer Instinct for a long time because I couldn't tell what was happening. When I actually sat down and played the game, it helped that they had somewhat toned down the visuals. But when actually playing it, I found that you don't need to look at yourself beyond the very tip of your hitboxes to see if they've connected. So that's already one half of the playable cast you're not looking at. You only need to look at your health bar periodically. You only need to look at your meter when you need to check if you need to use it. So all you're really looking at is what your opponent is doing. So if you're just watching the Jago that's doing a combo here, you'll have a much greater sense of what's actually happening in the game. I'm bringing all this up because last week, when all we had was footage of the game to look and screen caps and the story demo, and I'll talk about the story demo in a bit, people going, this game looks trash. This week, CEO happened on the weekend, Community Effort Orlando. There are a big bunch of playable actual game demos to play, and people were saying, hey, this game makes sense and feels pretty good. And it's because you're not looking at some heavily zoomed in scurvy Dante. You're looking at the motion and the flow, and from what I gathered, the game feel is actually pretty good. So you're not really looking at that.
Yes, even just from, like, I have so many things to say just about even the concept of the story demo for a Marvel vs. Capcom game, but if we just examine, like, the gameplay itself in a vacuum, even the gameplay in the story demo, I certainly enjoyed the way the game felt. The movement felt fairly smooth. It had a fairly nice structure for just doing stuff, combos and moves, and just the tag mechanics felt really cool. There's a lot of potential for some absolutely disgusting things to happen there, but aside from those sentiments have pretty much been echoed by anyone else I have seen that has played the game, beyond any build that was released, past the story demo, is that people just universally agree that the game plays like a dream, and
cool.
we can at least be thankful for that. I do have my suspicions about exactly what is causing at least the art direction, just from a visual aesthetics, per character basis, to be a little bit shoddy, but we may not want to go into that right now, do we?
Yeah, I'm not here to go for shock jock rumor mongering. I'm sure you can get plenty of that if you hit up twitter.com. It is a pretty amazing website. The next thing that I'll mention, I'm gonna pull up as a couple of other anecdotes that I have about judging books by their cover. Is I play a lot of random obscure dead games, as you know. I brought up Phantom Breaker, which is not a particularly attractive game.
Yeah.
But there's still certain sorts of art styles that I'll lean to and things that I'll avoid. As an example, there's a pretty good scrolling shooter you can purchase on Steam called Donmaku Unlimited 2. I avoided that game for quite a long time because it didn't meet with certain artistic things that I grew up with as a child from scrolling shooters. It didn't look like Choren-Sha, the game of my early teens. It didn't look like recent games that I've enjoyed the look of, like Jamestown, and it didn't look like the games of my childhood, like Tatsujin, and which all have this very chunky, not quite as organic as something like R-Type, but still a certain look. Same with Darius Burst Chronicle Savior, which is a very, very good Darius game, but the art direction wasn't in line with what I directly like in a scrolling shooter, so it's something that it took me a lot longer to play. Other thing I'll mention, and this is just another example of taking things somewhat out of context, so much like how when you're in the flow, it's something you don't really see, the Dante and the Chun-Li. And we have this here picture. I'm not sure if you're looking at the stream, Oren, but this is a very zoomed-in screen cap from an episode of Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. That was an internet meme for a while, where basically there was this very low detail shot of a character running up a hill. A couple of things that don't get known about when you're taking this screenshot out of context is that this was a tween frame from a sequence that was mostly tween frames, which are always lower detail anyway. This was also way off in the distance in a shot where it was not the focal image. Sometimes when you're animating something that's off in the distance, obviously when something is small, it's much harder to pack in detail when you are hand drawing it. And oftentimes when you're doing a distance shot, there's something in the foreground that's the focus, which was the case of this scene. So if you're simulating an out-of-focus shot with digital hand-drawn animation, then obviously you're going to reduce the detail on top of that. So the end result is it's a tiny part of a much larger picture that happened to be a bit less detailed because it's some tween frames way off in the distance. But people zoomed in on it and blew it up as, hey, look at this terrible art and animation. Now, to be fair, the tween frames were a bit sloppy, but it's something that's happened before with the Gundam series as well, where people blow way out of proportion small details in the background, which aren't the central focus of the shot. And again, that's somewhat what's happening with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. So I've been pretty positive on the game so far. I think... So I think I'll be a bit savage now. So the instant air dashes, the air dash system in the game is super wonky, and I'm super worried, given that we've already found infinites with things like Chun-Li, that the game's going to wind up doing a lot of situation-specific hotfixing to fix these rather than resolving the endemic system issues which are causing this stuff to consistently pop up in the first place. I said last year and earlier this year, various friends who don't really play fighting games asked me what I thought about Marvel Infinite so far, and I said that I would be excited about the game if it were releasing in December 2018, but it's releasing in, August, September 2017, so I'm very apprehensive because that's nowhere near enough time to develop a robust game. So I'm really worried that this game is going to come out with a bunch of stuff, and it's going to have a lot of very reactionary hotfixing that'll make it a bit more like a NetherRealms patching cycle, and that's not something I want to see. It leads to this very wacky period where people are constantly having to reinvent the wheel as they work out the meta each patch. But then once the final patch comes out, things get really stale, and everyone's so mentally exhausted by that time that they're not really interested in solving stuff. And since there's so many games coming out, I don't think you want that to happen. You want to have a bit more long-term planning. And obviously, Capcom's business plan the last couple of years has been very much about hotshotting. Week after OHN, so that's September 2017. The other thing I'll mention is the story demo. So, at E3, there was a trailer for Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite that had very little actual gameplay. I think it had none. I think it was entirely cutscenes.
Yeah, zero gameplay from what I remember.
And they announced a story demo available now, which I'm sure a lot of us downloaded to our PlayStation 4 devices and played through.
Yes.
And there's several things to mention. The voice acting was awful. Absolutely awful. I'm assuming that this is simply because the voice actors strike is on. So, but the voice actors strike is likely not going to be over by the time that this game goes gold, which will be next month. So, we're stuck with bad voice acting. This is a demo to sell people on the story. And the story was really, really dull. It was some small bits of talking heads, and then a fight with a bunch of drones piloted by Ultros. So, if this is supposed to sell you on this game having an elaborate, crossover-heavy, exciting story, it did a really bad job of selling you on that. Since this is a story demo... It
sure did.
This is not very... It's obviously not trying to focus on the gameplay. And so what it did was it let you play each character, but it made you fight some NPC drones where the base damage was set significantly higher than it will be by default when actually playing with people. So you barely had time to gain any meter to do any of the supers, to see what people's supers are. If you did a basic ABC launch, ABC special move super, that would kill a drone pretty much, if not before you even got to the super. So you have very little idea of what the tools are to play with. Now, the first thing is, why is this the package that Capcom has put out for people to try and sell them on the game? I feel that this is a case of Capcom completely learning the wrong lesson from the criticism of Street Fighter V's launch. Where the criticism of Street Fighter V's launch was, this game has provided a gameplay package, but there's nothing to do if you don't have friends, and there's nothing to strive for and unlock to make you feel good about yourself. It's just basically a versus mode. There's not even an arcade mode. Remember A1 Major's brother, I think, played a lot of vanilla Street Fighter 4 arcade mode because that's all he felt like playing at the time.
Yes.
So this time they went, okay, well, if people were really that disappointed about having no story, then we'll build this one entirely around selling them on the story mode. And that's not really what you want to do in a demo. A demo is about convincing people to lay down money on a game.
No.
A game which we need to remind people, they have not announced the full initial playable roster, but they've started announcing characters that you have to pay additional money for. So they're trying to sell you to buy all these gameplay elements, but they're doing nothing to convince you in their free demonstration why you should want to. It's, here's a few cutscenes, pre-order now. And this really feels like not just them learning completely the wrong lessons from SF5's launch, it also feels like a lot of games developers and publishers have really forgotten a lot of the lessons of what made companies like Apogee so successful. Where you look at the old Apogee shareware model, which was you'd have 3 episodes and the first episode is free, and it was all about, here is a bunch of levels, if it's a single player game, which they pretty much all were, here is just a bunch of levels and a bunch of tools, and you can play around with this as much as you want. It's most of the tools, and quite often it's some very tightly designed levels that let you showcase and discover what your toolset is and how to use it, and then at the end, it'll leave you with some suspenseful story mode hook of, oh no, you've fallen in a pit and you can't get out. You stepped off the teleporter off Mars, and now you suddenly die. Then this ominous text scroll says, what's gonna happen on the next moon of Mars? You need to give us money and you'll find out. You've looked at all these amazing things that have happened. All these window-heavy John Romero levels on Phobos. What are you going to see on Deimos?
Yeah.
There's more there's more enemies to encounter, new situations to discover, new tools to play with, new powers, new guns. Look at how cool this rocket launcher is. Wait until you see the plasma gun and the BFG. Whoa, what is this going to be? You should give us some money and then you'll find out. It's a great model and it worked really well. And in trying to do tricks to trick people into spending their money, they've forgotten ways to incentivize people, make people excited about spending money. And it's a pretty poor job. and I'm very apprehensive about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I'm probably not going to play the game because there's so many dang games coming out this year.
Yeah.
And so, if you don't find this game very interesting or appealing, cool. You don't have to buy the game. If someone's telling you that you have to buy the game and every game must be supported, they might be someone who's who really, for some reason has invested a personal stake in the game. Get them to calm down. Just, if they've bought a copy of the game because they're really excited about it, play it with them. And if you're not feeling it, you don't have to play it and pursue it. And it's okay to take breaks from games. A lot of people have been taking a break from Guilty Gear because although Rev 2 just launched, a bunch of other games have come out like Tekken 7. But as they get frustrated with movement or loading the frame data or want to be back to being a big fish in a small pond, whatever the reason that you come back, I'm sure that people will be coming back to Guilty Gear around OHN time when it's a tournament. And it's okay to take breaks from things, it's okay to not like things, and it's okay to want more from a game. That is about everything I wanted to cover tonight, I think, and we're at the 80-minute mark for this show anyway.
Not bad. Yeah, I was just gonna say that a lot of the criticism that I see from people with regards to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is it's not coming from a place of wanting to see a game fail. It is like the reason people provide feedback and they criticize games is because they want games to be better. And I think you'll find that a lot of the people that are some of MVCI's harshest critics, and at least the ones that are actually being fair about it and not just using it as an excuse to talk smack about Capcom players, is that they actually legitimately want the game to be good. They want to see the game succeed, and I definitely feel like with a lot of the decisions that they're making now, at least with regards to art direction, it can definitely use some improvement. The only reason I feel like that game won't be getting my money immediately is because I don't want my wallet to be saying that these kinds of decisions with regards to art direction are something that I am okay with. But I mean, I do genuinely want to see Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite succeed. I think that it's got some very interesting new gameplay systems to work with. I especially, actually, I didn't get to mention this before, but when you were talking about that Chun-Li Infinite. Yeah. Yes. I think that the gameplay systems are interesting, and there's definitely a lot of new cool stuff to explore there. I didn't get to mention this before, but with regards to that Chun-Li Infinite, I didn't know this, but Desk put out a video that shows the game basically has Marvel vs. Capcom 2 undizzy. So after a certain number of hits, you fly out and spin out, etc. Obviously, that doesn't change the the core point of what you were addressing when you were bringing that up as a specific example. But it's got some cool new system, not new systems, but it's definitely got some cool systems that they're trying to work with, which definitely makes me all the more scared for the potential NRS syndrome that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite might have, because I often find that NRS games, at least to me, have fairly interesting sets of base mechanics to work with, but they end up just completely stagnating the game by having people basically relearn the character and their game.
It's less stagnating and more burning out the audience.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it. Yeah. So yeah, criticism often comes from people that want something to be better.
So I do think that there are people who have very much built themselves around being Capcom people and only trust the Capcom brand. I do feel that there are people who have somewhat defined themselves, since as always, when you're ascribing yourself to a tribe, then you're creating a situation where there's going to be what does it mean to be an us? What does it mean to be a them? And so there is very much divides in amongst the broader fighting game community umbrella of people who very much put Capcom supporters in a them bracket. And so any sort of support from people who like a Capcom thing, they will feel that it's indirectly a personal attack on them. And so to any of those situations, I say, if you are feeling offended over the quality of a computer game or criticism of a computer game, or lack of criticism over a computer game, take a bit of a think about how you define yourself.
I agree.
That seems to be a reasonable closing point. Do you have any things that you want to plug, Mr. Sleep Mode AU?
So the only real thing I have to plug at the moment is just my Twitter. So that is at sleepmodeau. I tweet about various things, mostly fighting games. I put videos up sometimes. You can find my YouTube channel through there. There's lots of other various random discussions about